got to hold and give and do it at the right time, and the right time is now to listen to a podcast about the football which John Barnes was singing about all the way back in 1990 when he was speaking about holding and giving. He wasn't talking about intercourse. I am Ross Tweddell from Hold and Give. I got an email this week saying, it was a comment on a video actually saying, I subscribed to this channel thinking it was about intercourse, then it turned out to be football, but I've stayed subscribed anyway, which I thought was quite nice.
I mean, if we're keeping them hooked in somehow, I say we.
That's a turn of phrase, isn't it?
Let's roll with it. Well, it takes all sorts to make a world, doesn't it?
Can I just say, I don't know if it's two different walls of the same room that you've been sort of locked in for the past several months, but the background is looking sensational at the moment.
I have turned my laptop like 30 degrees. This room was a bomb site. It's the same room. I was just waiting to get a bookcase and I got one off Facebook Marketplace for 20 quid last week. Got all my stuff on it, got some shelves up. Still need to do the side of the room you can't see, but we're happy. It
doesn't matter if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. But Jack Atkins, did you know that Theo Walcott has more Champions League goals than the likes of Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo, the original one, the one that some people call the fat one, Miroslav Klose, David Villa, Alexis Sanchez, and Eden Hazard?
I did not. That's quite the list.
It is incroyable. Theo Walcott scored 15 goals for Arsenal in the competition, in the Champions League, and that is more than all of those people there. I can't believe for Ronaldo especially that's a thing, but I checked down the Wikipedia article of the top scorers in Champions League history, which went down to 24 goals, and he wasn't in that collection of people, so I just assume it's correct.
Just blighted by injuries, wasn't he? But, I mean, saying that about Theo Walcott, did he score a volley in the final like Zidane? Oh, he did not.
He did not, did he? I can't remember. He scored I'll tell you one goal he did score, though. He scored a wonderful goal. Oh, no, it was an assist, wasn't it? Away at the Reds, where he did like the slalom skier run from one end of the pitch to the other.
Yeah. He was good. He was good in his day, wasn't he? And then just did... I was going to say he dropped off a cliff, but he didn't really. He just kind of stayed there, but just... turned normal.
I never liked him. Never liked Theo Walcott. I always said, like back in the day when he was playing like at the top level for Arsenal, I'd be like, if he had no pace, it'd be in League One. I thought he was crap.
Wow, damning words there from Ross Tweddell about someone who scored more times than Miroslav Klose, David Villa, Alexis Sanchez, Eden Hazard.
But because he always used to be the thing like, Arsene Wenger, why aren't you playing me through the middle? I'll tell you why, Theo. Because you can't finish your dinner, you little hungry boy.
Do you think that early call-up by Sven got to his head a little bit, or do you think it put him on a pedestal that he hadn't reached, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean, and I do think that's right. Imagine being 16, right? We're all Bertie Big Bollocks to a certain extent when we're 16, because we haven't experienced the real world and the sharp cliff you fall off when you do experience the real world. So the fact he's getting called up for England at 16, I'm surprised his head didn't actually explode.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a...
There's nothing more to add to that. I was just thinking of me at 16. I was a little greb. If you would have said to me you're playing for England despite having no football and prowess at all, my head would have gone straight up my arse.
And you can't do that now because we are old.
No, definitely not. I can barely see my nether regions anymore.
And speaking of the nether regions, you want to remove yourself from the nether regions of the Hold and Give Fantasy Football League, which is now live. Everybody, Jack Atkins still hasn't joined. I'm waiting for that day to happen. I hope it happens very soon indeed. I'll put the link to the Hold and Give Fantasy Football League in the description of both the YouTube and the Spotify shares of this very podcast. So please get yourself in because there might be a prize, but I don't want to promise anything because I'm a useless mess. Why aren't you in the league, Jack Atkins?
Because I haven't clicked the link yet. I made a tertiary team the other day. I tried setting the name as Marco Van Bastard and got told I couldn't. So
I didn't know they reject. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, imagine if they didn't reject the name. Some of the things you would read.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I think half my mates would be in prison. But yeah, I've always been Slick McCarthy. Slick McCarthy will be back. I'll probably be propping up the relegation zone because, as we all know from this podcast, I don't go on stats. I don't study the game. I go on feeling. I go on heart.
You're the only man in the world who manages to pick Ian Rush somehow in FPL 2023-2024 season.
Of course I do, yeah. I cheat the system and it still backfires on me.
I tell you what, though, I've changed my name this year. Me and my girlfriend had a joint effort last season. We were the Cheesy Iniachos. but now he's not in the Premier League, obviously. I need to change the name. So I've gone for a career hybrid, like the football and the wrestling coming together for one name, and I've gone for Helen Lascelles.
Ooh, very nice.
Jamal Lascelles. Helen Lascelles. That makes most... Why did I say Lascelles? Jamal Lascelles?
You've been very Welsh in the start of this for some reason.
What makes you say that? I can't see one of those little biscuits with the raisins in for any distance here. What are they called? I can't remember. I made them in home economics class back in school one year. I remember them. What were they called? Little scunny things with little raisins in.
I don't know, but that's a fantastic tangent. Because I'm imagining you in traditional Welsh dress now with like the big hat and like the pinny thing and little flag, but making these little raisiny biscuits.
I forget what they're called. Let me know in the comments down below if you remember. I tell you what though, the most egregious thing I ever did in home economics class, we made a lovely tuna pasta bake once, and at the end of term we could amalgamate certain things we made throughout the term and make our own creation. So I made that cheesy tuna pasta bake thingy, but then I was a big fan of The Simpsons at the time and made a licorice Homer Simpson on top of the tuna cheesy pasta bake. Just imagine like strings of licorice with like making Homer Simpson's outline of his head. That was on top of the cheese, on top of the tuna, on top of the pasta.
That sounds disgusting.
It was. It didn't work at all. I don't know what I was smoking back when I was 13 years of age, but it wasn't healthy. Anyway, some people who are subscribed, I'm just thinking about that Homer Simpson now. It was disgusting. Subscribers to the Hold and Give Football YouTube channel will have seen a video that went live yesterday as we are sat here on Wednesday, August the 9th, and that was my predictions for the 2023-2024 football season as a whole. Obviously, I'm sat opposite now the Oracle, that is Jack Atkins, so I'm going to throw the categories I used in that video last night towards Jack Atkins and see if he picks the same stuff. In fact, I'm not going to say what I picked. You have to go and watch the video because that's how YouTubers work. We're all bastards. Jack Atkins, who is going to win the Premier League?
It's Manchester City, isn't it?
Do you think there's a case for Arsenal now that Manchester City, as we're sat here, haven't yet replaced Riyad Mahrez and haven't yet gone like for like with Gundogan in the middle, like that goal scorer and assist making midfielder?
No, I don't think. I'll be surprised if Arsenal push City again. I think they'll get top four handily, but I just think last year was a kind of not a perfect storm, but it just right place, right time sounds like I'm just like being like, oh, go, you gave it a good go. But I think I was surprised by Arsenal last season. I think the signings they've made are very positive, and I think that their spot in the top four will be cemented for the next few years now, unless something completely cocks up. But I just can't see them toppling City.
I was thinking they'd strengthened really well in the summer, thinking to play Havertz like in one of the three positions behind the centre forward. I know that Gabriel Jesus is injured currently, but to see Havertz in that false nine centre forward role, that made me worried for Arsenal because he's like a Theo Walcott. He's a hungry boy. He can't finish his dinner.
So he's like Theo Walcott, right? This is the Theo Walcott episode of the Hold and Give podcast. This is
any footballers who can't score a goal, they are just like Theo Walcott.
Just like Theo Walcott, yeah.
But what do you make of Havertz playing that false nine centre forward hybrid thing?
I mean, I haven't seen any of Arsenal's pre-season apart from the Charity Shield, Community Shield, still the Charity Shield in my heart. Yeah, I wasn't convinced. I've always liked Havertz. I think he got a bit of a raw deal at Chelsea, mainly from the fans. Especially last season, they hated him. And when he signed for Arsenal, I thought that's a really good signing. Like you said, with Jesus being out, this probably isn't the formation he wanted to go with. But I don't know. They've already got a positive result in the bag, so I can't see them diverting too much from the script. I think they're just going to push with it until it doesn't work.
And I have to ask you now for your top six as a whole. We're not going to do the whole league because who gives a toss about who finishes 12th? I've seen YouTubers do this. How can you predict that anyway? How does that even work as a prediction? It's just a guess. Who's the top six going to be?
Top six in first, Man City.
Mm-hmm.
Second and third are interchangeable.
No. You've got to nail your flag to a particular mast, young man. Don't you try and be sneaky with me.
Well, this was the second way round I got it, but I'm going Liverpool second just because I'm secret in my heart.
Yeah,
I originally had them in third and Arsenal in second, but I think, obviously, we'll come on to it later, we're still a bit lacking, but The last few seasons will have a high and then a low, and then a high and then a low. So if history is going to repeat itself, this season will be a high.
You're like the Little family from Stuart Little.
Exactly, just
a little high, a little ho. Ah, it's a little ho, innit? Not a little ho. Stuart Little's not a little ho. What am I doing now, Jack? And talk some words about Liverpool. I've just ruined everything.
Can't believe you called Stuart Little ho. I think Liverpool will have enough to be in a mix, but I don't think we'll have enough for a title challenge this season. I do think it'll be Liverpool and Arsenal scrapping for second. So so I've gone for, like I said, I'm nailing my claws to the mast. Liverpool second, Arsenal third, Man United fourth. Love them or hate them, upward trajectory. Still a work in progress, but they seem to be moving in the right directions.
They've improved their team from last season, especially, I think, as well, with a goalkeeper. Mason Mount, I guess, is an upgrade on, if you're going to play McTominay or Fred in there. I still think Mason Mount's a better player than them, so I can see them doing quite well this season as well. Bastards.
Yeah.
The bastards.
Talking about bastards, in fifth, I'm going for Chelsea. Unburdened by Europe. They'll need to be pushing on, especially after all the sales they did last year. Some of the names they've been linked with this window as well. It seems as though Moises Caicedo is going to end up there, which would be hell of a signing. And I think sixth, I think it's going to be Newcastle United.
Oh,
it's a very important season for you. I think this season's more important than last season because you've set out your stall now. There's certain expectations. I think top six will be. I think being set as a minimum is a bit too harsh for Eddie Howe, but I think that will be like the unspoken thing within that dressing room, if you know what I mean. I think you'll scrape it. I don't think it'll be easy, and it all depends on how Newcastle's cup runs go. But yeah, I'm going City first, Liverpool second, Arsenal third, Man U fourth, Chelsea fifth, Newcastle sixth.
Massive. No Villa, no Brighton there? No Spurs?
No, I think Villa will have a good season. I'm still not convinced by Spurs. Brighton, obviously, if like you're saying, then they've already lost. McAllister's gone. Moises Caicedo might be going, so that they'll need to hope that the rest of the team continues that momentum with some new faces in there. I think at the mid-table finish.
Because they've got Europe as well, which is going to absolutely hamstring them, you would assume. Like it does for everybody playing on a Thursday night. Hopefully it doesn't for Liverpool. Hey. Back on Thursdays, back on Channel 5. Is it still on Channel? No, it's on BT. TNT Sport now, isn't it?
TNT.
The TNT. Explosive. Who will go down? Who is your three teams to get relegated from the Premier League?
In no particular order. Nottingham Forest.
Oh!
Yeah. It's between them and the Ev. I don't think the Ev are going to go down. I think they're unkillable. They're just this weird thing that won't die despite signing no one, despite signing Ashley Young. But I think Forest, I'm surprised they stayed up last season. I'm also going Sheffield United because they've got no money.
What are they doing? By the way, I'm having a look yesterday. I've got a Sheffield United fan I went to uni with. Selling their best player to Burnley currently in Sander Berg and selling their former best player from last season and died at Marseille. They want to go down.
Why would you get rid of Sander Berg? It's ridiculous. But yeah, I think they're going straight down. I wouldn't be surprised if they're flat bottom. And I think they're going to be joined by Luton Town. They just, out of the three that have come up, they just feel there. Obviously, Burnley dominated the Championship last season. Vincent Kompany has proven at that level anyway that he's a good manager. I think they have the quality to stay up. I think Luton will just be, like I said, just there. But yeah, Forest, Sheffield United and Luton Town to go down.
Yeah, I think Luton will get a few good results at the start of the season, but I think once everything's bedded in, it'll be like, I only said Huddersfield Town there because they stayed up there first season because that makes complete sense for us. But you know what I'm trying to say. Once people's worked them out, I think it'll be a long old season for them. The Premier League top goal scorer. Who are you picking for that one, Jack Atkins?
Oh, who do you think? It's going to be Haaland again, isn't it?
I mean, probably.
Will he break his records from last season? Does it really matter? He's a freak of nature, isn't he? So
I was going to say, is there a case to be made that maybe Gundogan being that link between the midfield and the strikers not being there? I know they played Alvarez in sort of a similar role to what Gundogan was doing, maybe a little bit more forward than what Gundogan was. Is the fact that Gundogan's not going to be there maybe a case to say that the supply chain might not be as good as it was?
Quality is quality at the end of the day. I know that, like you were saying, a big supply chain makes all the difference, but it's Haaland. I think he's gonna just have at least this season, and then maybe one more season at City, and then I think he'd be off again. So I think he's just gonna. He just keeps getting better and better, doesn't he? And it's horrible. I think I saw something the other day saying that he's still growing technically as well.
Oh, 6'4" is not enough, of course. I need to rock back up to pre-season training because I've been watching those like Inside City videos on YouTube because I find it quite entertaining how the players like interact with each other. Like Erling Haaland sat there getting a massage and he's got his hair plaited like a 12-year-old girl just back home from Mallorca. That sort of haircut. And Jack Grealish walks in with a thick Brummie accent and goes something like, "All right there, Chuck, how's it going? You all right?" I'm just like, I never thought they would interact like that, Erling Haaland and Jack Grealish, but they do, and it's wonderful to see.
It's they're bosom buddies now. They're close friends.
Everybody needs a bosom for a pillow.
I wouldn't be surprised if Grealish rocks up with some like little lovely plaits for the start of the season.
Hey, his hair's now more normal this pre-season. He's had the sort of Alice band, bend it like Beckham, Keira Knightley look taken away, and he's just sort of got like a large quiff.
Yeah. I used to love rocking an Alice band when playing footy. It made me feel like I gave an extra 10%.
And I bet you look like a bearded Patrick Berger while doing so.
I look like a bearded beggar, at least. I know that much.
Who's going to be the dark horse of the Premier League this season in terms of teams? Who's your dark horse team?
I don't. It's not really. You're going to go, they're not a dark horse, but it's Aston Villa. I think they'll just miss out on the top six, but I think they're going to have a good cup run or two. Obviously, the tail end of last season, they look fantastic. Unai Emery's completely transformed them. Some of the signings they've made as well. I think this will be a really good season. Not similar to, not season just gone, the season before, West Ham. The way West Ham were absolutely storming it and then just kind of dropped off. I think Villa will build upon last season, go really close. Like I said, I think it'll be between Villa and Newcastle for the sixth spot.
I need to make an apology for my season predictions video because I was speaking about Villa and I was like, oh yeah, they signed Bailey from Bayern Munich this summer. He's a really good player. I meant Diaby from Leverkusen, the guy who got linked with Newcastle for about 2 straight years. I got his name and his team wrong. I should be sacked.
I mean, you wouldn't get like flagrant misrememberings or wrong information from Jack Atkins here on the Holding Good podcast now, would you?
No, you certainly wouldn't. Pepe Reina, who, by the way, he plays for Villarreal.
Is he still going? I remember he came up with some very right-wing stuff on Twitter a while back. And
what?
A bit like, yeah, he's a bit of an angry man. But I saw some of my mates the other day, and they were asking how work's been, and I had to mention it. I was like, I forgot Pepe Reina's name on a podcast the other day. While talking to my mate, and I'd seen his missus a few days beforehand from across the road walking the dog. And as I was going to tell him that I'd seen his missus, I forgot his girlfriend's name. And they've been together for 5 years, and I know her very well. And then after I even said to him, I was like, I've forgotten her name. I'm sorry, I've been terrible recently. Don't tell her. So
you need to go to the doctors, I think. What's wrong with you?
I really did. Like, Sean was just there laughing, just saying, Jesus wept. But I'm just getting bad. I'm just getting old.
Just in case you wondering how Pepe Reina got on, it was in the Cellar Cup presented by Visit Malta in the final. Well, I guess the last group game, which the winner won the entire competition. He got humped 4-0 by Newcastle. I couldn't believe he was still playing.
No, how old is he now? Is he 40 yet?
He must be near it. I remember when he was alone at Villa, like the lockdown season, and he looked gone then. Let me type his name into Google. Pepe Reina. Pepe Reina is 40 years. He's nearly 41. He's 41 on transfer deadline day. Yeah,
it's a madness because it feels like such a world away when he played for Liverpool. But in the grand scheme of things, in football years, it seems like 100 years ago. But in reality, probably got less than a decade, if that.
He must have left in 2013 because that's when he got Mignolet, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's when we got Mignolet from Sunderland.
Sunderland, who lost to Crewe last night, and there was 10,000 fans in their stadium, and they got beat by Crewe at home. That was wonderful. Anyway, the first Premier League manager sacking, we're not counting Lopetegui. He left by mutual consent today. He's been replaced by Gary O'Neill on a 3-year contract. He's landed on his feet, but more on him a little bit later. Who will be the first manager sacking after the season has started?
I think it's going to be Steve Cooper of Nottingham Forest.
Oh,
It's one of those, like,
you hate Forest, don't you?
owners are just so fickle that it just seems like they, especially with those teams that are in the lower half of the table, that they'll just sack at the drop of a hat, and they're just like, oh, even though he kind of like steadied the ship towards the end of last season, the second they get a couple of poor performances on the run, I think he'll be the first on the chopping block, just because it is that cutthroat.
Can I throw something at you that might make you change your mind? When there was all the rumours of him leaving last season, they pinned him to a new contract until 2025, and that was signed when they were near the bottom of the table last season.
Yeah, but as we know, money means nothing to Nottingham Forest somehow, so they're probably just in a given mood, aren't they?
I don't know now, because I've got Chris Wood on the books, who they paid £15 million for, but now want to sell immediately already for some reason.
Who knows what's going on in the heady streets of Nottingham?
Now let's go to the other domesticated there. The domesticated cups, the ones that live at home, locked in a house. The Carabao Cup.
Chelsea.
What makes you say that?
No Europe, works in their favour. I think they'll just be looking for any silverware this season to kind of it'd be like, don't worry, we're not in crisis. It is a cup. I think Chelsea for the Carabao.
What about Pochettino, who wins nothing all of the time?
Well, yeah, that's true, isn't it?
I'm just playing devil's advocate to be an arsehole towards you.
Yeah, it was just that when I was looking at the list of questions, it was the first one that jumped out at me. I think that Chelsea, I've got them finishing 5th in the Premier League. I think they will still not be where we expect Chelsea to be, but yeah, 5th place in a Carabao Cup. After what happened last season, I'd be taking that as a Chelsea fan. As a minimum, yeah.
I hope that story that was doing the rounds on like your lad Bibles and stuff earlier this week comes to fruition, though. There was an adult website, because Chelsea's shirt currently doesn't have a sponsor. There was an adult website, I can't remember which one it was. I don't think it was one of the, not your Pornhubs of your world, not your Tip Tops, your ex hamsters and stuff like that. Not those ones that were going to try and sponsor Chelsea this season. I thought it would be a great idea.
Yeah, but someone probably would have put the kibosh on that if it was real.
Where are you going for your adult material? What sort of question's that? Are you going to your Pornhubs and your X videos? As I'm trying to remember now. Many years ago. Your teenage years on the internet. Great times.
the many years ago. It was torrents back in my day. That's how...
What?
Yeah. I didn't know my way around the internet. I'd just be like, can I see a bum? Yeah. I don't know.
So you would have to type in what exactly you were looking for. You couldn't just have a little browse and a peruse of the titles, and then you'd have to actively download the video.
A browse and a peruse, like I've got a catalogue and a smoking jacket, and be like, I see that, I don't know, Big Gobs 3 seems quite good.
Big Gobs 3. There must be a video called that. Let us know in the comments down below if you want to search that on your machine. But yeah, exactly. Smoking jacket, cigar in hand, sunglasses on.
Treat myself, yeah.
Is that what you used to have to do? Incroyable.
Barry White on the radio, bit of cocoa butter, everyone's happy.
That went too far. The FA Cup.
Man City.
Yeah, I think Man City as well. Pep takes it seriously. He loves the FA Cup. Champions League.
Another boring one, Real Madrid.
I went for them as well. I know I wasn't going to tell anybody anything I picked, but I went for Madrid as well. I think it feels like all the planets are aligning, with Carlo maybe going to Brazil at the end of this coming season. Obviously Bellingham arriving, and Gula from I know he got injured and it's going to be out for a little while, but once he's back after Christmas, that midfield.
There's too much quality in that midfield. It's frightening, because they're all about 14 years old as well.
Yeah.
Again, unless the wheels fall off, I think it's going to be Madrid.
Europa League?
It's going to be Jurgen Klopp's Mustard Reds. As I've written here, again, unless some major cock-ups happen, and it depends, again, who drops down into the league as well, but finals in Dublin as well, so I think like the
my God, that's where you're all from anyway.
I think I'm the only person in Merseyside who's got no Irish in them. I'm a little Welsh boy.
Oh, so. A bit south rather than west. Aye, west.
Yeah.
What's the saying? Is it a Scouser is an Irishman who could swim, or is an Irishman a Scouser who could swim? Which way around is it?
I think it's a Scouser is an Irishman who could swim. I've never heard that before, but I quite like it.
I used to live with a Scouse. I've heard them all. The Wolves, the swimming Irishmen, all the sayings. The Conference League to round things off. Everyone's favourite competition.
Aston Villa.
I went for them as well.
Yeah, I think, like I was saying before, I think they'll have some good cup runs. They've got the quality to go all the way. I think we were saying before, Unai Emery, he knows what he's doing, doesn't he? He's not just chanced upon this by luck. He's a good manager. He's
a bastard away from home, especially in Europe as well. He bloody loves it, so he does. I remember getting laughed out of our office at work when I predicted towards the tail end of last season in the Premier League, Liverpool won, Aston Villa won, because Emery loves away days. And I got laughed at. But what happened? It was 1-1. Liverpool got a last-minute equaliser, probably Firmino, I think it was. His farewell goal.
I was going to say, did I laugh? I was well gone by then, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just fast asleep in the corner. That's what you mean by that. Clive, you know what? We can't say his surname, but there he is on the other side of the camera. It's time for your new hip-hop and happening segment on the Hold and Give Football podcast. Clive F. On this day, IP freely. What happened on this day in football history?
So it is the day of recording, broadcast, August 9th, 2023. But let's picture the scene, if you will. August 9th, 1947. Croydon. A woman strains and pushes, encouraged by medical professionals, as she goes through the arduous but natural miracle of childbirth. The strains are soon replaced by the cries of a newborn baby. "Congratulations, it's a boy," said the midwife, handing over the new child. "What will you call him?" "I know," said the mother. "We'll call him Roy." "Roy Hodgson? It's got a ring to it, that's for sure," said the father, beaming with pride.
I now want to know what Roy's mum and dad were called. Hang on, talk about yourself.
Well, I found out by doing this that Roy Hodgson's full name is Roy Hodgson. He doesn't get a middle name. He's not Royston. He's just Roy Hodgson. But it's Roy Hodgson's birthday.
Oh my God, his father was called Bill and was a Newcastle United fan who worked as a bus driver south of the River Thames.
Mini Magpie Roy, I'm surprised.
And
we'll
apparently
call him Jackie Milburn Hodgson.
One of Hodgson's schoolmates. Sorry, I thought I was getting confused by John Ruskin. I was like, who's John Ruskin? But that's the grammar school he was at. I'm talking nonsense again. But yeah, Roy Hodgson's birthday. How old does that make him then? 1947, 50, 70.
74? 6? He's in his 70s?
1947.
He's an old man.
Yeah, 76. Yeah, he'd be 76. Yeah. Up the Hodgson. Hodgson. He's a great man. Managing Crystal Palace this season. I'm sure they'll do well with the new free-flowing sexy football that Roy brought to the table last season.
He's not very popular around these parts, but, you know, I was surprised when they coaxed him back out of retirement, because when he finally retired, we'd be like, yeah, it's for the best. He's very old and tired. And they're like, do you want to come back?
He had that horrible time at Watford as well, didn't he? Which seemed to be like, it's just petering out now his career. He's getting old. Let him have a sit down and a cup of tea. Maybe get the old coconut butter out and a little torrent on the internet. Let's have him look at Big Gobs 3, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, he turned it around, didn't he, at Palace last season? I think him being there, he earned it. So he did.
And they seem to like him. It's just like your little old granddad, isn't it? You can't, like I said, some dislike towards him for what he did at Liverpool, but you can't fully hate Roy Hodgson. He's not a hateable man. He's just Roy. I'd forgotten that. Obviously, I knew he'd had a stint at Inter manager. I'd forgotten that he'd had 2 stints there as well until I was reading it up.
Yeah. Was it both in the 90s? Was it, or was one before the 90s?
No, both in the 90s. I think one was like something daft, like maybe 93, 94, and one like 99. I don't know, but yeah, 2 stints at Inter Milan.
Fair enough. Up the Roy. What else happened on this day, please, Jack Atkins?
It's not a great footballing date, but in 1997 it was the opening day of the Premier League, and Coventry beat Chelsea 3-2 thanks to a Dion Dublin hat trick. So.
Every time I hear his name now, just one thing flashes through my head, and that is the stairs leading up to the bedrooms.
I like Dion Dublin.
I like him as well.
He's got like second career on Homes Under the Hammer. One thing on August 9th, though, it is an unlucky day for Man United, as they lost the Charity Shield to Arsenal in 1998, 3-0, and to Chelsea in 2009. It was 2-2 at full time. Chelsea won 4-1 the penalty shootout.
Oh, Good day then. Good day for all concerned. We now move on from Clive F's IP freely to the weekly news and I said in the professional wrestling there. I'm not awake yet today. Anyway, big football news breaking this afternoon just before we came to record this very nonsense today. Ross Barkley has joined Luton on a free transfer after leaving Nice. Or Nice, as the French might say. He will be wearing the number 6 shirt. Luton haven't revealed how long the contract is for. I would assume it's going to be a year. Can you believe he's only 29 years of age?
The pictures of him as well, because you sent me like a grainy picture which looked like it had been leaked.
It looked like a Love Island advert to me. Just his face. It doesn't move like a human's anymore.
There was sorrow in his eyes as well. He was just like, oh. I honestly thought he'd end up back at Everton, so they must have cocked up royally to not get him back. Do you remember that time? I think it was when he was at Everton, when he shaved his head one week and the next week he had a full head of hair again.
I can't remember that. I remember him being bald, but I can't remember the growth being that quick.
It was rapid. Everyone just went, hang on, wasn't he bald? I don't think it was a week, but it felt like the next time you saw him he just had like a full coif. Good. I was going to say good signing for Luton, but
you don't know, do you? He's never, ever since he left the Ev, he's never nailed down a position in any team he's played in. He continued to get in the England squad for years, which was a bit baffling for me, but he always seemed to do quite well, especially for Hudson's England team. But I think going to Luton is the ideal thing for him, because you would assume he's going to be the main man. Like the sort of, this is a weird thing to say, he's going to be the Morgan Gibbs-White of Luton this season. But you know what I'm trying to say, though, the main linchpin, like linking midfield and attack.
I was thinking that last year for Lingard when he went to Forest, thinking, this is, I thought he was a fool to not go back to, he was at West Ham, wasn't he?
Yeah.
On loan. Yeah, I thought he was a fool to not go back there. And I thought, Forest, well, he's a good enough player, especially when the spotlight's on him, and he was okay. I think, like we said, we don't know until we see him, but I don't hold any great hope for Ross Barkley anymore, which sounds really sad.
Because he was that I remember it was sort of like the 12-13, maybe 13-14 season when he was at Everton under Bobby Martinez, wasn't it? He was the dog's
brown
bollocks.
Shoes.
The brown shoes. He loved a navy trouser and a brown shoe, didn't he?
Oh, he loved it,
doing this pose on the touchline when they missed a chance. Oh, he would always arch his back like a cat. Like Michael Jackson, that dance move Michael Jackson would do when he would fasten his shoes into the floor and then lean back, the old smooth criminal and whatnot.
Jackson went forward though, so he was the anti-Jackson.
God, he did go forward, didn't he? He defied the laws of gravity, physics, what I'm trying to say. Anyway, apart from Ross Barkley, the big news this afternoon is Wolverhampton Wanderers related. I was asking the question what is going on at Wolves, and then realised they've buggered themselves through FFP and can't spend any money this season, which means that former manager now, Julien Lopetegui, is off. I hope I said that right. Have I said that right, Lopetegui? That sounds right in my head.
Let's go with it, yeah.
Lopetegui, of course, joined Wolves midway through last season with the club deep in a relegation battle, but he managed to not only steady the ship, but turn him into quite a good outfit. It looked like they finished in 13th place in the league. Apparently, according to Wolves' statement, the club and Lopetegui held extensive talks about their differences recently and have now decided to part ways. Wolves said in their statement, the head coaches and the club have acknowledged and accepted their differences of opinion on certain issues and agreed that an amicable end to his contract was the best solution for all parties. And now Gary Lineker there, Gary O'Neill has taken over on a 3-year contract. He's landed right on his feet after being let go by Bournemouth at the end of the season. I put ruthlessly sacked in my notes there, which I thought was quite fitting, but now he's lying on his feet. He was Wolves' top target. He's got the job. Fair play to Gary O'Neill.
Yeah, this whole thing really surprised me, because when it first popped up the other day, I was like, hang on. It's like, what? This can't be performance related. It has to do with the, are you saying about the money situation of it?
Yeah.
He must have said, come on, there must be a couple of quid somewhere. And they must have said to him, nah, you're going to have to sell to buy. And even then, even if you sold 6, you can probably only bring in 2 kind of thing. He must have just been like, I'm not subjecting myself to this.
Yeah.
Because like you said, he's steadied the ship, decent place finish. I've always had like a weird little soft spot for Wolves, for one of those teams where when they do all right, I'm like, oh, go on, Wolves. Yeah, go on. Especially when they have Nuno. I like Nuno's Wolves. I like them.
Is that just because his name sounds like a Teletubbies Hoover?
Yes, that's why. Yes, exactly. I base all my football decisions on BBC Toddlers TV. Um,
I thought that you were like because of Slick Mick.
yeah, it's like Mick McCarthy. Was it? What season was it when he kept them up on the last day?
I think it was 09-10 maybe. Where they
Yeah.
they beat Black. I don't know why I know this off the top of my head. They beat Blackburn at home 3-2, I think.
And what was it? I think
Stephen
it was the
Hunt.
post-match.
Stephen Hunt bending one in. I can remember.
I can just remember the and Mick just lifted up his shirt and said, "Me and him, we could be brothers," and just set him on his way. I was just like, "Mick, you can't do this. You're amazing, but you can't do this."
I'm surprised he got so much TV work that he did, Mick McCarthy, because some of the things he come out with, you can't be saying that.
Yeah, I think it was the 2010 World Cup where he called the keeper a tart while on commentary.
But just looking at Wolves' transfer business this summer, they've signed Matheus Cunha from Atletico Madrid, who they had on loan last season for €50 million. They've signed Boubacar Traore, a defensive midfielder from Metz, for €11 million. They've got Matt Doherty back on a free transfer from Atletico, and they've signed Tom King on a free transfer, who's a 28-year-old goalkeeper from Northampton. That's the summer business so far.
Doesn't ring a bell. Going back to the other side of it, though, like you're saying about Gary O'Neill landing on his feet, yeah, happy for him, but it's kind of like a happy for you right now kind of thing, because I don't think it's going to be a great season for them. I didn't have them down as relegation candidates, but I do think they'll be in the mix.
It's going to go one or two ways, isn't it? Either Gary O'Neill's going to get the best out the squad he has, which he did at Bournemouth so well, or all the wheels are going to fall off and the bus is going to go sliding down a hill without a rudder. Because that's what buses have. They have big rudders sticking out the back, don't they, Ross? Of course they do. Elsewhere in the football news this week, the Community Shield happened at the weekend. Football's kind of officially back domestically over here in England. Cole Palmer opened the scoring for Manchester City with a stunning bender, with a just lovely goal, wasn't it? Before a 111th minute deflected Leandro Trossard strike got the game to a penalty shootout. Kevin De Bruyne and Rodri missed their penalties for Manchester City, who had Stefan Ortega in goal, who, while that penalty shootout was going on, I mistook for a small boy. He looked tiny in those nets, didn't he?
He did look small. I don't know if it's something about the occasion of Wembley, but the Wembley goals always look absolutely huge.
It's those nets. When you get those nets that go way behind the goal line itself, it should make a goal look bigger, but it always does.
Yeah, but like you said, he did look diminutive between those sticks.
Very political there from me. Very political.
Thank you.
Things we learned, I guess, big talking points from the game. First and foremost, I guess we covered it a little bit earlier on, was Arsenal. I thought they've I know it's horses for courses, kind of, because of Gabriel's injury, Gabriel Jesus, that is. But playing Havertz as the false nine, come centre forward. Again, he proved he can't finish his tee, but we've covered that already. I thought it was very interesting the way that Alvarez was used for Manchester City. He was finding pockets of space like Gundogan would do. I thought he started a bit more advanced than what Gundogan would do. I thought Gundogan would obviously play a little bit deeper, but bomb on like he would. But I think Phil Foden must be thinking, what have I got to do to get a regular starting place for Manchester City? Because surely he's the obvious answer, is he not, to replace Gundogan?
Yeah, it's very strange, the Phil Foden conundrum, because it seems like, obviously, the last season or two, he really came into his own. We're like, oh, God, he's really good. But it seems like it was at least 3 seasons before that they were like, oh, we've got this teenage sensation, Phil Foden. Oh, watch out for Foden. And like you were saying, what must he be thinking? If he's not done enough now to nail down a starting place, I don't think he ever will.
I don't think he will either, because Alvarez was signed as a striker and now he's being employed. Yeah. I read somewhere that Pep was employing him as a sort of cam towards the end of last season, with obviously the view of Gundogan leaving and this being the plan. But he was signed as a striker and Foden still can't get ahead of him, so I don't know. I don't get it.
Unless it's just one of those usual Pep things where he goes a bit mad in front of the big game.
Philip Lahm as a CDM.
Exactly. He's just like, oh, they'll be expecting this. Better pull one out of the magic box of tricks. I don't know. And see what sticks. But yeah.
Strange. Also strange is the new referee guidelines that they had to go by for this game, which included, but not limited to, automatic yellow cards for kicking the ball away after a free kick is given, yellow cards for dissent, 1 billion minutes of added on time, and players who receive treatment not being allowed to come back on the pitch for a full 30 seconds. Already that rule about leaving the pitch made no sense, and now they've made it make even little sense. You know what I'm trying to say? It's bollocks. Michael Ballack.
Yeah, because I was surprised because I remember at points during last season when players were going off because they were saying you just got to go off at the nearest point and go round. And I'm sure that was getting binned off left, right, and centre. It seemed a very fast and loose rule. I don't know. I'm always one of those that I'll wait and see after a few games and see if it makes a big change. Because these are all like the minutiae of it. It's not like the pass back rule. When was that introduced? Late 80s, was it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's something game changing like that. But billion minutes of additional time. We're going to go on to that in a second.
Yeah, if one of them is going to be game changed, it is going to be that one, because as a football fan, sitting there watching football for the last 25 years of my life, I've never once felt, we could have done with some more, like, not when your team's involved. Obviously, if your team's chasing a goal and you don't get the goal, you're always going, they should have given us a couple extra minutes of added on time. But never watching a game as a neutral, I thought, they were a bit harsh on that stoppage time there. I think we've been shortchanged as football fans here. We need to have every single celebration timed to the exact millisecond. Every single time the ball goes out of play for a goal kick, timed to the exact millisecond. And that exact total time added on at the end of the game. And I've never once thought that, but that looks like it's going to be a thing now.
I mean, on paper, I'm not against it, but like you said, it all depends what the run of play is like. And I'm just thinking, thank God Alex Ferguson's retired, because imagine Fergie time with these new rules. Games are going for 4 hours.
His watch would break every single game. They might be going like tapping on the top of it. He'd love to go tap, didn't he?
Just a finger with just loads of glass in the end of
it. So obviously this stoppage time thing has led on to the statement from Raphael Varane that was put on social media at the start of this week, where he basically criticised the latest rule change because it's going to be implemented in the Premier League as well and the EFL, telling them to add on the exact time for, as I said earlier there, lost to goal celebrations, substitutions, injuries, penalties and red cards. Varane said, "We had a meeting last week with the FA. They recommended from referees new decisions and rules. From the managers and players, we have shared our concerns for many years now that there are too many games, the schedule is overcrowded, and it's at a dangerous level for players' physical and mental well-being. Despite our previous feedbacks, they have now recommended for next season longer games, more intensity, and less emotions to be shown by players." What does that mean? Is that broken English? Is that like less emotion? Don't show when you're upset. Don't show too much joy when you score a goal.
Yeah, I think it's saying it's kind of like the way VAR kind of taken a little bit of the euphoria out of a goal out of it. I think this is just another way to kind of like dampen it as well.
What a shame!
Like, even if it is given, you can't really celebrate properly. I know.
What a shame. That's what the game's about, man. Anyway, Varane's statement continues. "We just want to be in good condition on the pitch to give 100% for our club and fans. Why aren't our opinions being heard? I believe it's important that we, players and managers, highlight these important issues as we want to protect the game we love and give the fans our best." It feels like another thing is being done to football just for the sake of doing a thing to football, because the game wasn't broken before this season. It was absolutely fine.
Yeah, we've said many times across these podcasts that there's too much football, and especially when your teams are flying and they're in all the competitions, and you start seeing players getting injured and fatigued, and it can derail seasons. Like you're saying, this does feel, not this one as such, but it feels like it's part of the wider scheme of the controlling bodies thinking, how can we get more money out of sponsors? How can we get more money out of TV rights deals? Blah, 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 without thinking of the welfare of the players. And hats off to Varane for, I'll do it literally. Hats off to Varane for speaking out on it, because, I can't disagree with anything he said there, and he's articulated it very well, considering it's not even in his first language. So, I'm glad someone said something about it.
Yeah, because I read something as well coming out the Community Shield that if they added on the same amount of time for the Community Shield in every single Premier League game, a ballpark sort of, not the exact sort of whatever time was added on, I can't remember now off the top of my head, somewhere between 4 and 5 extra games a season would be played just in the Premier League because of more time added on if you added up all the time at the end of games. And that is going to take its toll on certain players who can't already deal with Sunday, Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever, Saturday, doing that all season long.
It shows my frames of reference, but I'm just thinking, God, imagine Ledley King trying to play in this kind of new system. It's concerning. Hopefully, because these kind of things, you can see that they're trying to bring more of the sportsmanlike element into it, take away the gamesmanship and try and get it concise, and think that no, players will soon fall in line and we'll get a nice concise game of football. It's not going to work like that though, is it?
But what about when Luton go at the Etihad, for example, and they're just expected to play like Manchester City and just go off, we got beaten by the better team. They're not supposed to try and manage the game to benefit them at all. It takes away a large part of what makes football interesting for me. Game plans, tactics, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's unrelated, but it's like the other year when they changed the penalty rules for goalkeepers, where goalkeepers can't come off the line. I'm just like, that's rubbish. That it's just it's tipping the scales in an unfair way.
So, I don't agree with that one, Jack Atkins, because I remember Jerzy Dudek in that Champions League final, and he took the piss.
Exactly, and it won us the Champions League. So, considering whoever's taking a penalty can run up and they can stutter and they can do all this. I know they're trying to curb that back as well, but it's just lopsided. And like the example you gave there, like your Luton Towns going to Man City, it just seems a bit unjust, especially if, say, they're on course for a dramatic 1-0 historic win, and it's like, oh no, you got another 15 minutes, and they're bringing Phil Foden off the bench because Pep Guardiola doesn't know what he's doing with him. Oh, good luck, lads.
Yeah, it's just like with the playing field's not even to begin with, then make it not even on the field itself, if that makes any sense. Because if you're a smaller team going to a bigger team, you've got a time waste. That's just part of the game. To make that unfair as well, but it's all just to keep the big boys at the top and the little boys at the bottom, isn't it? Oh.
Well, it's like you said, gamesmanship is a big part of it. It's something that Liverpool don't do enough, and Newcastle have done to great effect. And
it's time wasted when Newcastle do it. It's game management when the other teams do it, but when Newcastle do it, it's very naughty. You're not allowed to do it.
I've never had a problem with Newcastle doing it. Even when you're doing it against us last season, I was a bit like, swines. But you do need to do that kind of stuff.
Part of the game, isn't it? It's part of the game.
Exactly. It is part of the game. You can't, as much as it annoys it when it goes against you, you've got to do it.
It's the other job's team to deal with it and overcome it. Is that not what the game of football's all about?
Well, exactly. It's like with continental players who are a bit more, let's just say, light on their feet and go down easier. I know in other football and cultures, they see the game as playing against the other team and playing against the ref as well. And that's why there's more of a diving culture in certain countries. But like you said, it's all part and parcel of what it is. This gamesmanship, you win by any means. If it's within the letters of the law, it's within the letters of the law, isn't it? So
they're trying to make it like FIFA now for these kids. That's what they're doing. I'm 31 years old now, Jack, and I'm a miserable old man. They're trying to make it for the FIFA generation.
How was your birthday, by the way?
Midlife crisis, Jackins. Got myself a tattoo and drove supercars. The leather jacket's been ordered. It hasn't really. I've not ordered a leather jacket, but I did feel like I've been going through a midlife crisis because I went and drove supercars for a day and also got a tattoo. I'm living La Vida Loca, baby.
Well, that's fine. I got a tattoo last weekend just for the hell of it, and I wasn't celebrating anything, so... Live your life, be free, as Belinda Carlisle once said.
Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. Let's talk goalkeepers, everybody. First and foremost, Arsenal have announced that Matt Turner, the USA international, has gone to Nottingham Forest on a permanent transfer, which then must mean that Henderson is staying at Manchester United to sit on the bench behind Onana. Bit strange there. He got a long time linked with a 20 million move to Nottingham Forest, where of course he spent a season on loan. Excuse me. And then of course Arsenal are now bidding 30 million euros, have agreed a deal, I should say, to sign David Raya from Brentford. He will compete, you would think, with Aaron Ramsdale, who I think will maybe keep his number one jersey, but will have a man now properly breathing down his neck.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see if Brentford try going in for Henderson then.
Yeah.
Doing like a big triangle of moves. Yeah, I can't say I know too much about Matt Turner. I was looking it up before this. Number one for USA. I think 6 or 7 appearances for Arsenal last season.
They were all in Europe, weren't they, I think?
Yeah, I can't blame him for wanting to move because he's at Forest, like 45-year-old Wayne Hennessy, is it?
Yeah, so they obviously had Keylor Navas on loan last season, but he's not gone back.
Oh, God, yeah.
But, because I think Henderson also, he was on loan last season, got injured, and that made them bring in Keylor Navas, and Henderson didn't get back in the team. So, it's... I don't know. It's odd, isn't it? I don't know what to make about any of it. The David Raya one is very interesting because Ramsdale was looking like becoming the real deal as a goalkeeper last season. Obviously, a couple of mistakes. You could label it him being a reason for Arsenal dropping off like they did towards the end of the season. David Raya, in terms of a ball-playing goalkeeper, he seems to be one of, if not the best around, which is what obviously a lot of modern-day managers want, especially someone like Mikel Arteta. That's why I guess they got rid of Leno, was a large part of that. So who do you think will come out on top in terms of Ramsdale and Raya?
I don't know if it's a horses for courses thing. I don't know if it is if the share to Ramsdale's until he either drops a bollock or gets injured. Like the old school way of doing it. Back in the old days, like the 70s and 80s, where the shirt was yours until you were injured. I don't know though. Brentford have got a hell of a decision to make. Like I was saying there, I wouldn't be surprised if they went in for Henderson. I rate Dean Henderson. I quite like him. I feel a bit sorry for him because he's been a bit unlucky career move-wise, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, one of the best in the league last season. I can't see him taking that number one shirt, at least not straight away.
Not straight away, but Brentford have signed a goalkeeper this summer. 30-year-old Mark Flecken from Freiburg in the Bundesliga for 13 million euros. Was he signed? I doubt it was just to be a backup for 13 million euros at a club like Brentford, surely. Especially when they've spent 27 million euros on Nathan Collins from Wolves. Yeah,
it's one of those, isn't it, with goalkeepers? It's hard. It's what I think it is the hardest position to properly get right. Again, going to my frames of reference with Liverpool, as soon as we brought in Alisson, it changed everything.
Yeah,
and it just shows what a really good keeper between the sticks can do for you. To see him go for just 30 million seems a bit cheap considering the market as well, but Brentford must have been happy with the deal to let it happen. So
yeah. Goalkeepers moving everywhere all of the time. West Ham corner, I've called this one. There's lots of stuff happening finally at West Ham. First and foremost, Man United have agreed to sell Harry Maguire to West Ham for £30 million. On Monday, West Ham made the £30 million bid for Maguire, with obviously his long-term future now in doubt at Manchester United after he was stripped of the captaincy. Part of the reason why Manchester United knocked back the offer was the belief that the West Ham board essentially couldn't offer the wages that Maguire would have wanted, but West Ham basically said, we can do that, we'll change the contract slightly, and now the two clubs have come to an agreement. Maguire, of course, joined for £80 million in 2019, which means that Man United are making a £50 million loss at least, maybe if you don't take wages and stuff into account. It was a world record move for a defender from Leicester back then. Made him the most expensive defender in football history. At the time, I think everyone was saying he's just come off the back of a fantastic World Cup. He looked the dog's bollocks for Leicester. It's a sign that makes complete sense, but I feel bad for me because I still think there is a good player in there. I think it's a case like not too much like to as much as an extent like Johnny Evans. Johnny Evans is a fantastic defender. He's just not Man United top of the Premier League level centre half, if that makes any sense. I think Maguire is sort of like your fifth, sixth, being a standout there, and he's just not the tippy top.
No, and I think you were saying the other week, isn't it, that the whether knowingly and properly or not, his ego seemed to inflate a bit, obviously, as you would if you were just told that you're the world's most expensive defender
ever in football history.
Yeah, it has. I think this move, though, despite United making a 50 million loss, but they're just mad with their finances, I think this is a move that suits everybody well, because Ten Hag clearly didn't fancy him if he's stripping him off the captaincy. I don't know if he was a disruptive influence in training or in the locker room, but he seemed desperate to get him out of there. For West Ham, I think if you're playing him and Kurt Zouma in the back four, I think, like you said, there's still a player in there. I think is he 29 or 30, isn't he?
Around 30,
31, I think, at the beginning of next year, maybe. I think he's a decent enough player. I think he just kind of needs to. This again sounds arseholish, but he needs to be brought back down to earth a bit.
I think he does as well. When you watch that, was it against Hungary, scored a goal for England or Lithuania or someone like that, he's put his fingers in his ears like, ooh, this goal against the minnows of Lithuania, whoever it was, that'll shut up the doubters. That sort of stuff certainly crept into him, I think.
Yeah, but I think it's a good move. I think it's a good move for him as well, because West Ham ended last season how I thought they were going to start last season. I thought West Ham were really going to have a very good year last year, and it was up and down until the Conference League win. obviously with some of the moves West Ham have been making already as well, it looks like they are trying to. Well, we're in West Ham corner. We'll go on to them in a minute, but it looks like they are trying to properly plan their transfers rather than just a kind of scattergun approach. Yeah, I think it's a good move.
It'd be interesting as well because watching England, I think Maguire works a lot better in the back three as like that left side or maybe the centre back, if that makes any sense, than he does in a back two. I think he gets found out too much in a back two centre half pairing, especially now that he's getting on a bit as well. I say getting on, he's still younger than me, but that's different. You know what I'm trying to say? I think it would be interesting if West Ham changed for him to get the best out of him because it seems like in a back three where he can step out and be a bit more expressive, he seems a lot more at home doing that tactic, that formation.
Big old slab head, as they call him.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him on a corner delivered by James Ward-Prowse because West Ham have bid £30 million for him as well today. Kieran at work was telling us today that Southampton rejected, because he's a Southampton fan, Southampton rejected a £30 million offer, but now they've accepted a £30 million offer. So something's gone on in the background there that we're not too sure about. I think it's a good signing. I don't think he's as good as a lot of people say he is, James Ward-Prowse. I think he was the best player in a very bad team last season and in previous seasons that Southampton have been when he's been the captain. Obviously his free kicks and his set pieces speak for themselves, but you're looking at a centre midfielder trying to control the game. I don't think he's that guy. I think he's a bit overrated personally.
I heard someone, and this is a bit damning, but I can't disagree with it, when they were talking about James Ward-Prowse, saying that obviously when teams go down and there's like a handful of players where you're just like, well, they're not going to play in the Championship, they'll be straight back in the Premiership. And with James Ward-Prowse, I think he was on the fence. You'd be like, oh no, I could see him playing the Championship next year. Again, 30 million, Southampton have done, I was going to say they've done well there, but I'm not too sure.
Well, they had initially slapped 50 million or 52 or 53 million on his head.
They were never getting that.
Never ever.
Never getting that.
Even though he probably is as important as that price tag would say he is to them, if that makes sense. Like, he is a 53 million pound player for Southampton, but nobody else.
Definitely not. Again, a decent enough signing. Like we were saying, it seems like they've got a plan in mind.
They do, because they're also apparently in for Scott McTominay along with Harry Maguire from Manchester United for 30 million once again. And the big one, I think, is Edson Alvarez from Ajax, who's currently undergoing a medical before joining on a 5-year contract for about £34 million. This is a guy who got linked with Newcastle not so long ago, so I took a little bit of an interest in his YouTube highlight compilations, and he looks like the kind of player you'd want playing for your team, which of course everybody does, even Brian Howard of Barnsley in YouTube compilations.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, when you hear, oh, we're linked with a player from Ajax, and you're just like, oh, tell me more. I can't say I know much of him, but if you're saying that his YouTube highlights suggest that he'll be a good sign, it would be a good sign. And McTominay is a player I like, but even though I was saying that James Ward-Prowse for 30 million seems a bit fair, I think McTominay for 30 million seems a bit high.
It does.
But obviously the market is insane at the moment, so it's hard to say what anyone's really worth. He's
so odd as well, because for Man United, he's like, obviously a big physical presence in the middle of the park. He gets about the pitch, he puts a tackle in. But then for Scotland, he's like Gundogan. He's popping up with goals. I don't know what's going on. What is Scott McTominay?
He's a Scottish hero, apparently. He's the Scottish Gundogan. I don't know, because again, like we were saying in a previous episode, he seems like this generation's John O'Shea or Gibson. Good players that don't seem out of place in a squad that's going for honours, but in terms of would you start them week in, week out, probably not. Again, a bit mean to O'Shea and Gibson because they won a lot with United. But like you were saying before, that Maguire never felt like a Man United level centre-back. It's one of those where he felt like squad player at best.
Yeah, he's always going to give you 100%, but it's that, as Rafa Benitez would say, quality.
Moving on.
Quality. But I guess we've also got to say about West Ham corner now that this talk of Moyes falling out with West Ham's new director of football, it's got to be wide of the mark now that they've Because they've obviously got a lot of money in. I think they wanted to wait for the Declan Rice sort of hysteria to die down, because there's always going to be, now that everyone knows they've got £105 million extra in the bank, there's always going to be a bit of a tax added on for any transfer dealings they were doing. So I think it's been quite plotted in the way they've waited for that, a month to pass and then do their moves, even though I think David Moyes would have been tearing his little ginger pubes out. I don't know why I said that. His little ginger pubes out. Just wanting, obviously, his squad to be ready for the start of the season and not sort of being still put together while the start of the season's going on.
Yeah, the big one to me is still when Spurs sold Gareth Bale, and it felt like they just went, "Oh, we've got this money, we need to sell it. What? We need to spend it even." And they just went and just got anything and tried to see afterwards if it would work. It does feel like, obviously, knowing that Declan Rice was going to go, I think has given them the time to properly plan it. And like we say with every transfer, we'll have to wait and see. But on paper, if West Ham's business looks good.
Because you look at Rice out, and in terms of the midfielders, Ward-Prowse, McTominay and Alvarez in, I guess for 90 million, and they've sold Rice for 105. That's decent business, that, is it not?
Yeah, it's a good turnaround, yeah. So, injuries prevailing, etc., on paper, yeah, it looks like they've done really good business. I don't think you're saying about David Moyes potentially falling out with the director of football. I don't think they'd back him to the hilt like this if they'd had issues. So.
Exactly. Manchester City, the West Ham outgoings do not look like they're going to stop. Apparently Manchester City have made a verbal offer, whatever that means. Pep just ringing up, "Hello, David." "I want Paquetá," puts the phone down. David Moyes is in shock. They made a verbal offer of around £70 million for Lucas Paquetá. Apparently Paquetá is not happy working under David Moyes and his tactics and his setup and his formations and whatnot, and has voiced concerns despite winning a European trophy last season. Apparently West Ham have turned down this verbal offer and have insisted that they do not intend to sell Paquetá, but if the right offer came in, he's off. So I don't know what any of that really means. It's not a formal offer, it's a verbal one.
Yeah, well, would this not be considered tapping up then?
Yeah.
Or does tapping up just not exist anymore?
I guess if it didn't take place in a hotel in Soho, it's not tapping up like Ashley Cole was. Or was it on Fleet Street? I can't remember what it was. It was somewhere in London.
Fleet Street's where all the papers are, isn't it? Well, yeah. Traditionally, yeah.
Or Barbers, the demon barber of Fleet Street. You know that one? You know that guy? Sweeney Todd? Sweeney Todd, there we go. Yeah. But yeah, it looks like that one's just... It might go somewhere, it might not go there. It feels like a weird one because he's more central than Mahrez. Again, we've got Phil Foden there in the sidelines going, what have I got to do? You spend £70 million more on another guy in sort of his position. Maybe he plays a bit deeper than Phil Foden does Paquetá, but where does he fit into Manchester City?
I don't know. I don't even know with Man City anymore because, the age-old beaten stick that they'll sign 80, £40 million players and then, next season sell 75 of them. They can do what they want in terms of that Pep Guardiola is that good and that much of a maverick. He's got that kind of maverick footballing brain that he can mould players. And like we said, he does have the ability that if it doesn't work, he can sell them again. 70 million for Paquetá, again, seemed a bit much, but like you said, European Cup winning season, not the European Cup, but a European Cup winning season. If he wants out, you'd think Moyes would be like, sound, leave then, I don't want any disharmony in the dressing room, but I don't know what to make of City anymore.
No, because I saw this news yesterday and I was like, they want Paquetá, he's been that good, has he? But then you read the stuff about trying to fit into Moyes' tactics, and I don't think David Moyes has ever been set up to get the best out of a player like Lucas Paquetá, has he? He's been...
No, probably not. No.
You're more your Tony Hibberts and you... and your Gareth Barrys of the world. Gareth Barry was after he left, wasn't he? You know what I'm trying to say, though? More hard-working players than fanciful players like Paquetá.
Yeah. Yeah, like you were saying, it remains to be seen if this goes through because, like you're saying, the use of the term verbal offer is odd.
It is odd.
But how long have we got left of the window? It's like 3 weeks, is it?
Yeah, been close to a month, surely. Yeah, it'd be the start of September, wouldn't it?
So, who knows? There's plenty more moves to be made, ladies and gentlemen.
There is. Tell me why Liverpool won't just pay Southampton 50 million if they really want Liver. Why won't they do it? They've offered so far 35, 45, 42, but they won't offer 50, even though Southampton have said, please give us 50.
It's really annoying now. It's obviously this is more down to the transfer teams, I think, rather than our owners saying, "Oh, is this money for this player we've never heard of?" But kind of thing. Yeah, why are we farting around? Liverpool, we're usually quite good at getting deals done quietly and quickly. Like Dominic Szoboszlai, we're just like, "Oh, he's available, we'll have him." Fabinho, famously the other year, we went, "We'll have him." This is ridiculous. It was Jamie Carragher tweeted the other day saying this is embarrassing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, either you don't think he's worth 50 million, in which case move on, or he is worth 50 million, then pay it. This is coming the same week that apparently the reason we backed out of the Kefren, any deal for Kefren Turan, because we thought 40 million was too expensive.
In today's market, though, it's not, is it, for him?
No, not at all. Especially when the report said that we were going to have a £250 million war chest. And obviously we've spent some of that money, but we've also shaved a lot off the wage bill and brought in, close to 60 million with outgoings. So out of that 250 million war chest, that's the old Liverpool net spend, we probably only used about 30 million quid.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet saying, with Liverpool, why are we being ran like Accrington Stanley? It's the lack of transparency which just is driving us mental. Even Gary Neville was coming out saying, if you're Liverpool, you're going in for Moises Caicedo. Why are we farting around haggling over 2 or 3 million for a largely unproven teenager? If Klopp likes him, I'll put my faith in Jurgen Klopp, because he's a fantastic manager that has made me see things I thought I'd never see. But this is getting ridiculous now. We're going into the season without a number 6. We've known about his name being linked with us for ages now, before Henderson and Fabinho went. So not only have we got to bring in him, we've, arguably got to bring in another midfielder as well, and ideally a left-sided centre-back. So it's just frustrating.
I'm just looking at the midfield options you've got. You've got Bajcetic, who I think is injured currently, isn't he?
Yes, I think he's back in training.
Obviously, you've got McAllister's in there, so there's one you've got definitely for the start of the season. Curtis Jones. Thiago, is he fine?
He's just back in training, but you can only probably guarantee 10 matches a season.
Yeah, you got Szoboszlai, I guess, as a fourth option, and then Harvey Elliott, I guess you can throw in there as a centre midfielder. Gakpo, maybe, but he's not really, is he?
We've been trying Gakpo in the number 10 in some of the pre-season stuff, and with Harvey Elliott, he much prefers playing more in that kind of in the front three, but not quite. He's still technically a midfielder, but he just wants to bomb on. We were with Bajcetic last season. We were trying to play him as a number 6, and he looked sound. But
I thought he looked good. There was a game away at Villa where he started, I think, and he looked really good, I thought.
But in terms of the amount of minutes he's pretty much got a similar amount of top-flight game time as Romeo Lavia. So some people are just like, if we're going to be spending the money, why are we buying something that we've kind of already got? Why would you not go for someone a little more proven? Or if we've got all this money burning a hole in our pocket and Chelsea haven't got Caicedo over the line, why aren't we just diving in there? I don't know. But it's even though I said before Liverpool finished second, it still is brown trousers time. We're also being linked with, I think, is it Andre from Fluminense? I've not seen anything of him, but he plays in Brazil and he's got a mustache, so he must be mustard.
Has he really?
Yeah. So I don't know what to say.
I need to have a look at this. Oh, he's got a little goatee. Depends what it depends what day of the week it is. He's got a goatee or the mustache. Oh, I like the look at him. I don't know why, but I do. Harry Kane, not Harry Maguire. Bayern Munich have had their club record transfer bid for Harry Kane turned down by Spurs. It's the third time they've gone in. It's €100 million, which is £86 million. Is that enough for Harry Kane for you?
In this market, no. Because we're going to come on to another story in a minute, and the money being thrown around there is a bit wild, but for a team the size of Bayern, who I know obviously the German setup is different and the way teams are funded and financed is different, and like this saying, this would have been a record for Bayern, which is mental, but 86 million does seem a bit cheap in this market.
Yeah, especially
£86 million, that is.
For Harry Kane, yeah. I just love the fact that Daniel Levy is such an evil bastard. Like, if I was a Spurs fan, I'd be not over the moon with Levy in the grand scheme of things, but in terms of Harry Kane, I'd be over the moon, because any other owner, I think, would have cashed in a long time ago, but he's clearly hedging his bets on Spurs without Europe this season, having a very good Premier League campaign under Postecoglou, Maddison feeding Kane, getting 30 goals again, and then Harry Kane going, well, there's less teams in for me this summer than there was last summer. I guess I'll just sign a new 2 or 3 year deal with Spurs.
And that's Shearer's record then in his sights.
It is. It's gone. I think it's gone anyway. I think we're this close to this, because there was that story last week, wasn't there, saying that if we got to the start of the season and Harry Kane was still at Spurs, Harry Kane is going to stay at Spurs for the season. I think we're that close to the season now. He's just going to stay there. Harry, he's taken it. He's taken Shearer's record, and I'm at peace with it now. He's a fantastic footballer. Still not as good as Shearer, because obviously Shearer overcame 3 career-ending injuries to still achieve what he did, and Harry Kane's not had that yet. It's still to come, hopefully. But Harry Kane will be the leading Premier League goal scorer of all time.
Yeah. Not much more to say this, because this has been rumbling on for a few weeks. I could see him, like, I can picture it in my head, him playing for Bayern Munich and absolutely banging him in. But if Tottenham don't like the offer, then they don't have to sell him, do they? So
I think he would rather be the leading Premier League goal scorer than have a Bundesliga. I think that's what the decision is, and I think he'd rather have the goals record. It's not,
especially after trying to claim some the other year that definitely weren't his, and it's like, grow up, man.
Is a Bundesliga that appealing to you, though? It's not appealing to me.
It's not, but you're guaranteed some kind of glory and probably a sniff of the Champions League, the semis at the very least, probably.
He's been there before.
Oh yeah, of course. And luckily he didn't turn up on the big stage that night. A night in which I nearly threw a stool across a pub.
Do you mean what, the thing you sit on, or the thing that comes out of you?
The thing you sit on.
Oh, thank God for that.
Well, yeah, it's better than me throwing a human turd across a pub. In the Champions League final, when we put that penalty away, like, I turned around, one of my mates was just in tears, and my initial instinct was just, I just picked up a stool, and I just went, I've picked up a stool here, I'm going to put this back down.
What a responsible man you are. But just in case you were wondering, Bayern's previous record money paid for someone was for Lucas Hernandez in 2019, when they paid when they paid around, what was it? I can't remember what it was now, but it was in 2019 when they paid for Lucas Hernandez. That was the previous record. And then Spurs' previous outgoing was Gareth Bale to Real Madrid for 85 million in 2013. Do you remember how bat-poo crazy 85 million sounded back then?
Yeah.
It's the new 30 million, is it not? 85, 90 million?
Yeah, it's 2013 as well. I'd forgotten it had been that long, but at the time that was like, Jesus, that's a lot of money. And as we saw before, how much did United sign Harry Maguire for? Was 85 million?
85, yes.
It's peanuts in this modern game. It's peanuts, I tell you.
Speaking of peanuts, £72 million has been spent by Manchester United on Atalanta striker Rasmus Højlund. 20 years old. He scored 9 from 20 starts in Serie A last season. He's got 6 and 6 for Denmark. I saw a little stat, because obviously people have been going, 9 goals last season, 72 million. That doesn't add up. That's pounds as well, by the way. But in terms of being 20 years old and league goals scored, he's up there with the most goals ever in European football in terms of league goals scored by the age of 20. He's up there with Harry Kane and people like that. So I think, no, not Harry Kane. Harry Kane got 2 goals by he was 20. He's up there with everybody else. Because obviously Harry Kane was a bit of a late bloomer, wasn't he, Harry Kane?
But yeah, this is what I was saying before. Is when you're in this market where someone who is, as impressive as those stats are, he is still a prospect at 20 years old.
Yeah.
When he's going for £72 million, you can completely understand why Spurs said, no, you're not having Harry Kane for £86 million. Again, I'll wait and see. I didn't realise, because I remember when this first went through and I heard that number, I was like, that's a bit much. This seems like one of those mad Man United moves that they like to make. But if he can back up those stats and improve on what he's already done, who knows? This could be a shrewd bit of business. But
it could be, but there is a big question mark, isn't there? 72
million is high, and that's United ruling themselves out of a move for Kane this summer as well.
Yeah,
so
you'd rather have Kane, wouldn't you? In the short term, at least. I mean, Højlund could become a very good player. We know that, but you'd rather have Kane, wouldn't you? If you're sat here now, given the choice between the two.
Yeah, proven, especially in this league as well, because it's the old cliche, isn't it? Oh, played in the Italian league. Let's see what they're like in the English league. So
Yeah, elsewhere in big transfers this week, Robert Sanchez went from Brighton to Chelsea for £20 million on a 7-year deal. He seemed like the dog's bollocks before De Zerbi came in, then just De Zerbi didn't fancy him, so off he's gone to Chelsea. I guess he's going to compete and hopefully take the place of Kepa for Chelsea's sake, because I think Kepa is awful, and I can't believe he's still there. I think he's awful.
I've just read as well, 7-year deal. Chelsea. How has no one looked into these Chelsea deals yet?
It's coming. It's coming. It's guaranteed to be coming.
Like I keep saying, in this market, 20 million for a 25-year-old. That's a good bit of business, I think.
You go back 2 years, though, and he was one of the leading lights in terms of goalkeeping in the Premier League. I don't know what. Obviously, De Zerbi didn't fancy him, but surely there's got to be more than just that have gone on for this to have happened. Surely.
Well, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, do we, Ross?
No, we don't, and we can't pretend that we do either. Manchester City, just to round off the big deals of the week, have obviously signed a centre-back they don't really need, do they? If you're going to come down to brass tacks, they don't really need a 77.5 million centre-half called Gvardiol from RB Leipzig. A 5-year contract for him. He is the dog's bollocks, we all know this. He's Croatian, he wants to play with Kovacic. I think was a big reason as to why he signed. It's just not fair, is it?
This is one of the reasons why I think they're gonna. I don't think they'll win the title at a canter, but I think it'll be comfortable because he's just boss, isn't he? He's such a good player. Obviously, Liverpool got linked with him. Whether there was any actual link or if it was just websites trying to get clicks from desperate people like myself is another thing. And we thought, the idea of in a couple of years' time, Gvardiol and Ibu Konate marshalling that Liverpool defence, beautiful. But City, innit? That's a great signing.
Him and Diaz as a two. That's bestiality. That's not bestiality.
It's not nice, is it?
Why did I say bestiality? They're a pair of beasts. It's what they are. We'll move on from that. The highlight of the week is another segment we do on the Hold and Give Football podcast. Mine, I'll go first this week, is Chloe Kelly's penalty for England to send them through to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. Have you seen it? Because the highlight for me is not just the run-up, but it is the thunder bastard into the top corner. Just in case you haven't seen it, it's a run-up unlike any you've ever seen before in football history. I've compared it to the skip of the hop, skip and a jump that a triple jumper does. It's the elongated skip in the middle, one bounce, twat, top corner. It's one of the best penalties I've ever seen, and also the sort of context of the situation, because watching that game in the office like we were the other day, England were lucky to get through. Obviously injuries to the likes of Beth, oh my god, I've forgotten her name now. Beth Mead, beg me pardon. Beth Mead and stuff before the tournament, the injuries that are happening during the tournament, the red card to Lauren James in a moment where she should have stamped a bit harder. If you're going to do it, just stamp harder, why don't you? The back's against the wall. Nigeria probably should have gone through, but they didn't, and the fact that she did that for the penalty to get them through, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, I was trying to keep up with this on Twitter because I try not to actively use Twitter anymore, but it's such a resource for
news.
Work that it's on. And I was in my my office space in town because I'm not always here because I need to get away from my cats in my house sometimes. And for some reason, every time I was clicking it, I was just somehow linked into kind of African Twitter. So it was just people just saying, England are poo, aren't they? I hope these go out. I nearly swore there. But yeah, that penalty, it was beautiful. Like I said, when I first watched it, I thought, she skied this because it was proper top bins, wasn't it?
Angled, I think the word, isn't it?
Angled, yeah. This is talk about bestiality. Kurt angled. It was Kurt angled into the corner. Yeah, fantastic penalty.
Yeah, that was my highlight of the week. What's yours?
Well, mine was Raphael Varane's tweet. I've got another one. It's a bit wanky, and I've gone for, this wasn't this week, it was the week before, but because we've had 2 weeks since a proper podcast, I'll allow it. And it is a bit of wanky schadenfreude. And it's from Everton's Bill Kenwright.
Well, I can't wait to hear what this is because I don't know what's coming here.
So a video clip came out and it was getting the piss ripped out of it because he was talking somewhere. It looked like it was some kind of I don't know if it was an Everton event or a speaking engagement, but he was talking about one of the greatest nights of his life happened at Goodison. And it was watching Tony Bellew fight. And everyone just went... Everyone, he's not even picked anything football related. That's fantastic. Like, I've got a soft spot for Everton. When I started getting interested in football, it was an arms race between my dad, who's a red, and my brother, who's a blue, to claim me. And my brother tried to get there first, took me to my first game and stuff, but he was literally the only Everton fan I knew. The rest of my family are all Reds. So I do have that soft spot for Everton in my heart, because I'm just like, they're all right, the Ev, but you couldn't make it up. You could not make this up.
I'm just Googling how long he's been on the board, or associated with the runnings of Everton Football Club, just to see how many football memories he could have picked in favour of Tony Bellew. Everton Football Club, 1989 is when he was on the board for the first time, after he succeeded Littlewood's director Philip Carter.
Yeah, so what? They won, was it FA Cup 95?
Yeah.
Then beat Blackburn in the Charity Shield. So it's neither of those wins. They're not up
there. The European nights under Moyes, the relegation escapes of the late 90s, I guess you could throw in there as well. Yeah,
I mean, it all pales in comparison to seeing Tony Bellew fight.
What a tit.
I know, like I said, it's a bit of schadenfreude. It's a bit of fun. I was giggling at it, but for the handful of Everton sporting fans I do have, I can't wait till they get him out of the club, because he's just rubbish.
I was watching that fan debate thing that the Overlap do, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, where they have all the representatives from the clubs in, and the Everton fan was saying they're going to sell on to somebody else, and then somebody else is going to sell on, and then when they do that second sell on, that's when the Ev will get back on track, because that's when they'll have money again. So, are you looking forward to Bill Kenwright leaving? Would you not rather he stayed there for as long as possible? Him and Farhad Mashiri, whatever he's called.
Yeah, because it all went a bit weird, because I think the heads of the board stepped down this summer, and it looked like Mashiri was going, because I think he's under investigation for certain things. This is all allegedly, just in case the lawyers are on it, but I'm sure he was under investigation for something. And people were being like, oh, finally Kenwright's going to go, but he's like a cockroach, isn't he? He's going to cling on. Because when that stadium's complete, despite they have actually built it on water, it's going to be great for the city. And I like the fact that the city has 2 Premier League level teams in there. Like, it's good. It's good for the locale. I never want to see Everton beat Liverpool, and it was the most Everton thing ever that they did beat us, but it was in the COVID season, so there was no fans on the ground to see it. But yeah, it's an odd situation, especially the amount of money they spunked these last few years. Yeah,
it's all catched up with them. I reckon they'll go down. Just another spoiler for my Premier League predictions. I think they'll be the 18th team in the league. That made no sense. The first loser in the relegation fight, 18th position. That'll be Everton this season, I reckon. Anyway, I
wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see it.
Yeah, they've got to sign more players. Anyway, we go from the highlight of the week to the twat of the week. Would you like to go first, since you are arguably the smaller twat of the pair on this podcast?
It depends what day it is, isn't it? Personally, Liverpool's recruitment team, this isn't a Liverpool podcast, I'll have to go for Lauren James. Like you said, she's hell of a tournament so far. That volley against China was beautiful.
Velveteen.
It was liquid football, as they like to say.
Imperious.
But as you alluded to, is the stamp on Michelle Alozie in the match with Nigeria. And you don't want to see it happen. And there's a chat about role models, about impressionable kids, the fact that there's more eyes on this World Cup, especially in this country, than ever before. But like you said, if you're going to end your tournament early and lash out in frustration, do it properly. Like, the fact that as soon as she did it, Alozie just kind of went, what are you doing?
It's that still picture where it's mid-stamp, the studs are in the back, and she's just on the floor going, she should be screaming in agony.
What's the line from Sean Connery in the Untouchables? Is it they send one of ours to the hospital, we send 2 of theirs to the morgue? And it's like it's that mental. If you're gonna go down swinging.
Yeah.
But again, Michelle Alozie, I'm probably saying her name wrong. I apologise. Her reaction on Twitter. Have you seen what she tweeted afterwards?
I haven't. No.
She put, I beg, rest. We are playing on the world stage. This game is one of passion, insurmountable emotions and moments, all respect for Lauren James. I was just like, brilliant.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what I would have responded. That bitch, I hate her. I hope she burns in hell for doing that to my back. That's what I'd be like.
Going into that locker room swinging. But yeah, we don't want to see stamping in football, but if you're going to do it right.
Yeah, you got to do it right, haven't you? We've all been there. Rush of blood, all that sort of stuff. My twat of the week is the person in charge of Manchester United's social media game. This week, Manchester United released their third kit. It's quite nice, excuse me. The chicken wings are coming up from lunch. It's quite nice. It's a nice white number. They've replaced the traditional badge with just the red devil part of the traditional badge. It's all red. But the guy who shared the tweet, and I don't know if this came from Adidas or if it's just a thing by Manchester United themselves, the first line of the first Twitter share, it read, "It's not too late to say no." And in completely unrelated news on the same day, Mason Greenwood was pictured training for the first time at Carrington. I don't know if it was at Carrington, actually. He was kicking balls into a net. And just the combination of those two things. Bit tone deaf, innit? Bit tone deaf.
Yeah. It's one of those where they needed someone to look it over first and go, ooh, hang on a minute.
Maybe it isn't an Adidas thing then, because surely someone who works for Man United and knows what's going on and what has gone on, they wouldn't put that out there, surely.
It feels like this is like a tagline they agreed on in a boardroom months ago. And they're like, right, we're launching it. Let's do it. Let's do the campaign with, was it Roy Keane, wasn't it, in the shirt, actually looking happy. And then, unfortunately, it has happened to line up with, Mason Greenwood back in training.
Just the same day.
Not a great look.
Not a great look.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Bunch of twats. Anyway, we move on now to the mailbag, the Roberto Mailbagio. Ross at holdandgive.com if you want to send your mailbag in. If you're failing week on week, shouldn't say failing. If you're not having your mailbag submission picked every week, keep trying. It's a busy mailbag. We're getting there. Thank you very much for all your support. All that bollocks. Corporate hold and Sergeant Give. And I said social give there. Sergeant Give. Would you rather be Corporal Hold or Sergeant Give?
Well, you're running the ship, so surely you're Sergeant. Sergeant's higher than Corporal, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll be Corporal Hold. You can be Sergeant Give.
Up the Gibbs. What's the best pie you've ever had at the football? I was down at York City last season, and their chicken and mushroom warmed the cockles of my heart. All the best. Loving the podcast. And that's from Dean and Carlisle. Thank you, Dean and Carlisle. Now then, I've got to say, I've only ever had one pie at the football, but it was a toe curler. And I mean that in the best possible way. You only get a bit warm and you're a bit like, oh, and your body just does that. I bit into, and I was pissed as a fart when it happened. I was 16 years old. I shouldn't have been drinking. It was a terrible time. I was at Blackburn Rovers in the 08-09 campaign. And at half-time, I was dying, and I needed something, some sort of sustenance, just to, help sober up, just make that feeling of horrible sickness that accompanies a drink go away. And their chicken balti pie was unbelievable. This was back in early 2009. I think we got humped 3-0 on the day. But the chicken balti pie it made the trip worthwhile. But that's my only point of reference for a pie at the football.
You'd hope they had good chicken with Venky's being involved.
I think it was pre-Venky's, I think, though.
Oh, was it pre-Venky's?
Yeah.
What? Goodness knows what the fare was like after the takeover. Am I right? That sounds lovely, though. I actually quite want one now.
Oh, it was delightful. What was your... I imagine you have been quite frequent with the pie intake at football.
I do like a good pie. It depends on the type of match, though. Like, if it's cold or if it's a nighttime match, I'm definitely going in for a pie. Otherwise, I might go for, I had a burger once at Tranmere. That was a mistake. It was a long time ago. But in terms of actual pie, I tell everyone, if you're going to Anfield, jib the official in-stadium dining experience. There's a community bakery over the road called Home Baked. It's won awards. They've got a pie hatch on the side. But you go there, get yourself a Scouse pie, which is just stew in a pie, twat a load of brown sauce on it, mix it up, fantastic. That's really good. I remember having I had a hot dog once at Goodison, which had those crispy onions on it, but they were basically black, and it looked like I had toenails on the hot dog. But it was really nice. That's the only pie experience I've gone for. I remember having my head burned out when I went to a Toronto FC game because people were getting like chicken parmigiano. in their seats delivered to them, and I was like, "Game's gone. The game's gone."
The game has gone, but it also looks, because I follow like Footy Scran on Twitter and stuff. When they share, you can see as they say, the kids say, Jarkins, there are levels to this game, and the Americans, in terms of their football food, are on a different level of what we have over here.
I think I saw one. I think I saw it in Mondial because they print some in there as well. And someone was, I want to say they were at a game maybe in Mexico, and the scran looked fantastic and probably cost about £1.50. But yeah, I need to get to more football in general this season, because it's been a lean few years. Because one, there was COVID and that, and before that, I was poor. So now a couple more games, get some pies in me, and I'll report back.
Tell you what, on that subject, the way they're doing the memberships at Newcastle this year, it's already impossible to get a season ticket. I tried, it's impossible. But now the memberships, of which they've sold over 105,000 of the memberships, going for about 10 to 15,000 tickets every home game, is now a ballot system. So you enter what category you want to be put into, like ticket price wise. It ranges from 40 quid, I think, to 75 is the most expensive for a single home game. And you put whatever price you want to go into, and then it's it's a lottery, a yes or a no. Didn't get one for Villa, so it's going to be a long season, it looks like. Great.
We knew this was coming though, didn't we?
Yeah, we need a bigger stadium. We need, honestly, 80,000 we're selling out every week. The way it is at the moment. I know it might. There's gonna be a lull period and that might drop off a bit. But the way things are now, you got this, like, I think it's like 34,000 season tickets at St James's Park, something like that, and then you got 105,000 members on top of that. It's at a 50,000 seats when you take the away end out. It's impossible. Now an impossible.
I know Aidan, our pal Aidan Gibbons, went to the match the other day, but I think he got a ticket from a mate. I don't even think he was lucky in the ballot. So,
yeah,
best of luck to you.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Anyway, back to the Roberto Mail Baggio. Hello, lads. Love the podcast. Is Callum Hudson-Odoi good or bad? I can't work it out. He's back at Chelsea at the moment, yet he doesn't appear to be getting a look in. Yet in the years before his loan to Germany, he seemed to have a big future ahead of him. What is a Callum Hudson-Odoi? Best, Daphne from London. Thank you very much, Daphne. I'm sure, before we started recording here today, Callum Hudson-Odoi is going somewhere. But what is a Callum Hudson-Odoi while I'm looking for that?
I don't know. Like, for me personally, he's not good enough. When I was looking this up, he's older than I thought he was as well. He's 23 in November. I thought he was younger than that. And like I've said, we're usually ones that go with our hearts and go for feeling rather than out-and-out numbers. But numbers don't lie on this one. 16 and 126 for Chelsea. It's not good enough, is it?
It's not, is it? And he's going to Fulham.
It's to Fulham?
He's going to Fulham.
Loan or
permanent?
Surely it'd be a full sale, yeah.
Full sale to Fulham. I don't know how much for. Let me have a little look on Twitter, see if Fabrizio has tweeted anything. But yeah, he's going to Fulham. Again, he looks like he's got all the bells and whistles to be a football player at the top level, but when it comes to doing the things to get you there, he hasn't. Like, he can't put the ball in the back of the net, as we've gone through there. The assists isn't really what they should be. He seems like a Fulham sort of level player, if that makes any sense. So maybe pushing top half of the Premier League.
I wonder if he needs maybe a positional change. Like, as bad as Everton were last season, I thought Alex Iwobi was pretty good, especially in flashes, and that was, now they've dropped him a little bit deeper. Perhaps it could be one of those that if they just try and drop him a bit deeper into the midfield, it might unlock the potential that we've always thought he had.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
The only thing I can see now is that Fulham are trying to get the deal done in the next 24 to 48 hours, according to Sky Sports News. So all the best to him. This could be another move where he's like a Harry Maguire, not like a tippy-top player that you would expect to come from, I know, not last season, but, by and large at Chelsea, and maybe a drop down the league a bit will do him the world of good, being one of the main men at Fulham, you would assume. The final Mail Baggio question this week. Hey, guys, if you were going for a Toby, who currently playing would you want to see the Toby belonging to? Personally, I reckon Jadon Sancho is one of those fellas with a metabolism to die for. He can put away serious scran for sure. He goes king size and doesn't go easy on the stuffing. Love it. Also, what do you have on your carveries? Bill from Birmingham. Cheers, Bill. The mailbag's going odd. It's taken a while, but we've got there eventually.
Toby Carvery. Now I want a Toby Carvery.
I love
We're not sponsored by Toby Carvery. If
wish
Toby
we
is out there, Yeah, oh god, yeah.
Imagine that, getting a free king size every week. Imagine that. That would be the dream. I'll tell you what, I had a few years ago at Toby Carvery, right? It's a Yorkshire pudding starter, but filled with nachos, beef nachos. So you got your Yorkshire pudding, it's the bowl, and you got the nachos inside of it, and you rip it off with the Yorkshire pudding. Oh, one of them. Which
that
I
sounds
realised,
delicious.
Yeah,
maybe
really
a bit much if you're going for the full trimmings afterwards.
It was.
One of my mates is a strong man, not like a Victorian style one, but he's a unit, and he goes to Toby for his breakfast. So that's...
We tried that. We got out of bed early, especially one weekend, and went to a Toby Carvery, and then went straight back to bed upon returning home. It was that big, just all you can eat, sausages for days. It was fantastic.
Whoa.
But which Premier League or which current player would you love to see the Toby Carvery belonging to?
Right. This is it's the obvious one, and it's a bit mean, but Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw. Imagine a tag team of me and Luke Shaw running into that Toby Carvery. There'd be gravy up the walls. There'd be pandemonium. It'd be like two Tasmanian devils in a world of roast potatoes. I'll tell you that for free, Ross Tweddell.
Are you saying he's a fat man?
Well, I can't say anything. I'm not a professional athlete, and I'm a fat man. I just wear bigger clothing and then grow into the clothing and then have to lose weight. But yeah, he's bigger than Jadon Sancho. I'll be diplomatic and put it that way. But as Bill was saying there as well, what do we have? You've got to go king size.
That means you get your two sausages on the side and two Yorkshire puddings, which is crucial.
Of course, I get everything but mash. Unless, I'm very particular with mash. It's got to be the right consistency, not too creamy. If someone says, "Oh, creamy mash," I'm like, no, I don't want creamy mash. I want to be able to sculpt out of it, but I don't want it lumpy. So I just stick with the roasties.
I hate mash. Hate it.
Did you hate mash?
Hate mash. I used to get made smash fairly regularly as a child, and it put me off proper mash as an adult.
I can just imagine you just being like, "Can I have a sandwich?" And you won't be like, "Nah, you're having a bowl of mash."
Me gran turns into Badger from Bodger and Badger.
I went out with a weird goth when I was a teenager who just wouldn't eat, and then occasionally she'd just be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna have a plate of mash for tea," and she'd have mash with salt and vinegar.
I hope you ran away from her very quickly upon learning this information.
We were on and off for 4 years.
I just imagine her tying you up and then feeding you mash even though you didn't want it.
Yeah, I'd be like, not this mash, it's the wrong consistency.
What meat you getting at the Toby Carvery though? What meat you going for?
It depends on the day. Because I'll go with Charlotte, my girlfriend, who's a very diminutive wee woman, was a vegan for many years, but eats like a 55-year-old Brexit voter. Loves a bit of gammon. Loves it.
Up the corned beef.
She loves, any kind of offal. No, she doesn't eat offal, but she'll be like, "Oh, let's go to a Toby. Toby, I really want gammon." I think last time we went, I went turkey, beef, and lamb. I think last time.
I always find the lamb a bit too fatty at the Toby Carvery. That's the one place I won't have lamb.
It was a bit fatty, but lamb's my favourite roast. And people usually call me boring for turkey, but I've got a sweet tooth and I like a bit of cranberry sauce in there, don't I? But who are you picking for current footballers who you'd go Toby in? I'm
trying to think of who is the sort of do you remember? Oh my God, I've forgotten his name. Oh God, at Wigan, Paul Schneider. Do you remember the rock and roll football? Whoa, I'm hardcore and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Was it Paul Schneider? I'm trying to think of his name. Wigan Athletic.
I'm just thinking of Paul Jewell.
Paul Sharner. Was it Sharner? Paul Sharner at Wigan.
Yeah.
He used to dye his hair half and half different colours. He was crazy. I'm trying to think.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think of who is the modern day equivalent to that. And even though I think Mitrovic has got his foot out the door, which would have been my first pick, I think his Fulham teammate, João Paulinho, is maybe the closest I've got because he's a tough tackling midfielder and I reckon he puts a lot on his Toby Carvery.
Do you reckon? I thought you were going to go like Grealish because, he's a man of the people.
No, he doesn't do it properly. He's looking after his figure, isn't he? He doesn't do a Toby Carvery properly.
Off-season, are you telling me that if you were a millionaire Brummie with the world at your feet, you wouldn't be going for a Carvery?
I reckon he gets smashed on vodka on Grey Goose because he's conscious about the calories. He's conscious about the calories, so he is. But in terms of my Toby Carvery, Bill from Birmingham, I have to ask for the gammon, but I want honey glazing on every piece. I make that request every time because I love honey glazed gammon. But as I say, I went for the lamb for a period of time, but it's always a bit too fatty for me at the Toby Carvery. Turkey, no go, not interested. Don't even have it at Christmas. Too dry, not interested. Ma'am, I'll have a 3-bird roast as a compromise.
As a compromise. No, I quite like a bit of turkey, but like I said, I've got to have enough cranberry sauce to kind of lubricate the meat.
Yeah, but in terms, last couple of times they do like a cheesy potato thingy at Toby Carvery up here, and I've been putting that on there, even though it doesn't belong there, as well as, and it's controversial, let's try this one on for size, the mac and cheese. I put the mac and cheese on my roast. But away from the gravy. It can't be mixed in with the gravy. That would be disgusting.
I can't get on board with that. That blue sky thinking. I can't be doing that.
You know that sort of thing that's been cutting England off from not Brexit, but the thing that's been cutting off England from the rest of Europe in terms of the heat wave. That sort of thing. You got to create that on your plate and then put the mac and cheese in one corner and put all the gravy covered products in the other corner. That's the top.
Is that what you're using your king size 2 extra sausages for as a breakwater?
Yeah, big time. And the Yorkshire pudding as well. They make stable craft. They do, and absorb the gravy as it head towards it. It's a tactical process. It's the building of a Toby Carvery. Let me tell you.
One last question before we get too Toby Carvery heavy. With your Yorkshires, are you cutting them up and having them in the mix with everything, or are you a pick up and a dunker into the gravy?
A cut. Knife and fork. Ooh. They're in the situation. I always place them in the middle of the plate before I get the meat put on there. So they're in the middle of the plate, and then you get the things assembled around them. They are the focal point of the dish.
I have them on the side, dry, but then go in as basically like an arm bread. I just go in with the.
That's interesting. I've never once thought to do that with the Yorkshire pudding, but it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, it's lovely.
What a note to end on. We've answered the big question already. Who's going to win the Premier League? It's going to be Manchester City. But I think Arsenal will get closer because I think they're a lot stronger than they were last season. And I reckon City, as we're sat here on the 9th of August, are a bit weaker.
You say that though. I mean, look at the Community Shield last year. Liverpool battered City. And we thought, this is our year, lads.
Do you remember that when everyone thought Haaland was going to be crap? Because he missed that one chance over the bar.
Yeah, I know that. I was laughing at the time. Man City are a weird beast because as good as they are, they do have a lot of luck, and that comes with winning. Anything you've got to ride your luck. I think it was one of the seasons when COVID was around, and when City when their team got an outbreak of COVID, it was during the international break or the break at that point, or there wasn't any game, so it didn't affect them. Whereas I know for Liverpool anyway, when we got a COVID outbreak, it was in the middle of a run of games, and I just think they've got that hot streak, and I can't see it ending. I think they've just kind of, especially now they've broken that Champions League hoodoo, as they like to say in papers about football only. Now they've got that kind of monkey off the back. They'll just be like, whatever, let's go for 4 this season. Go for it, whatever. It doesn't matter. We'll win something.
No team's ever done it, have they? 4 Premier Leagues in a row. It's only ever been 3. Your Manchester United, as Gary Neville likes to say.
Well, yeah, before last season, before a ball was kicked, I said if it's not Liverpool win the league, I want anyone but City, because I think if they win this, we'll go Bundesliga, and before you know it, they'll have 6 or 7 in a row. Horrible, innit?
Anyway, we've gone from Toby Carvery to misery. Hey, that's never happened before, ever. Right, that was it for episode 11 of the Hold and Give Football podcast. Thank you very much for watching. It is 11, but even though last week was a special, so technically it's 12.
Yeah, I've numbered this as 11 in my little notes.
I think it's just a regular podcast. If you haven't already, please go and check out my video of the season predictions. You've heard Jackie Orlando's here in the podcast today. Compare and contrast ours. Make a note of them. Put yours down as well, and we'll see who comes out on top at the end of the season, eh?
It's going to bite me on the arse, isn't it?
It'll bite all of us on the arse. We're all knobheads who know nothing about football, but we have cameras and voices and microphones, which gives us a license to make content about the thing we know nothing about. On that note, I've been Ross, he's been Jack, and we'll see you next week.